Hello again, and welcome once more to Kerbal Sapce Program. This is the career mode playthrough. Slightly embarrassing. I recorded this and somehow I've managed to completely lose the audio track I recorded alongside the video. So yes, you have me in voiceover mode, although this will mean slightly more of the video than usual gets fast forwarded. Okay, so what are we doing this week? This episode I suppose, we are going to go through a couple of contracts. We have a couple of Kerbals in orbit who need rescuing, and we have a world's first thing to go and dock to craft in orbit. So this episode I'm going to be trying to deal with both of those. We're not going to be doing anything particularly adventurous. We're just going to build a craft capable of rescuing somebody. We're going to send it up, rescue them, and then in theory we're going to dock to it, but in practice I forget, so that comes home and then we launch two more, rescue the other one, and yeah, come home. Let's go on with building the ship. Okay, so here we are in the VAB. Using the Gemini type capsule. I've never actually used one of these before, so this craft is a little bit unusual for me. Yep, docking port on the nose because we're going to try and do a docking port mission later. It's basically the capsule, heat shield, a couple of parachutes. Usual thing, put a fuel tank underneath it, a little Terrier engine. And then what we're going to do is give the thing some RCS engines near the front and the back. A couple of little fuel tanks for those, don't need too many, so I'm just going to show a couple of those on. We're going to give it some solar panels, which turn out to be remarkably useful later. And a couple of lights on the side so that when we've got somebody in EVA heading for this thing, there's a chance they can see it. And some on the front so that when we're trying to dock with something, there's a chance we can see it. So there we are, the little Gemstone capsule. Next up is something to get it into space. Now, I've not used these size of modules before, so this is going to be a little bit over-engineered. Into a shroud to assist it getting up. We're going to give it a second stage, which is one of these little adapters and a small fuel tank with a Poodle engine. This is way overkill for what this thing needs, but we do have a MUN rescue mission to do as well at some point, so I'm looking at that. Thruster weight isn't enough. This thing's got the performance, but not quite the thruster weight, so what I'm going to do is shove a couple of little boosters on, drop them down, so for a couple of Reliant engines, nose cones, various struts and what have you. Fairly basic craft. It is over-engineered. No fins. I don't think I'm going to need them on this one. It turns out for once I'm correct. But there we go. So, that is Gemstone. Let's head to the pad. And here we are on the pad. Now, I did a little look in the tracking station. I know roughly what orbit this thing needs to get into. We're talking about an 80 to 90 kilometre orbit for this first one to go and grab the first of these Kerbals. So off we go. It's not exactly sprightly off the pad, it's a little over 1.5 thruster weight, but it's enough. We get up, do a little bit of a gravity turn, and then yeah, we fly up. We'll go through the staging process and what have you, and then yeah. So I will see you in orbit. So here we are in orbit. The upper stage, as you can see, has still got it's full tanks. The second stage is still on about 50% fuel. Yeah, this thing has performance to burn. As you may have noticed, I do tend to over-engineer the craft I work with. What we're going to do now is just stick it pointing upwards and get the panels rotated toward the sun. We're going to have to select our target here, and we are going to have to adjust the orbit a little bit. We're a little way off the rendezvous. It's not too bad. What we're going to do is fast forward this until the approach points get reasonable, and then we're going to do some rendezvous adjustment maneuvers as we did before, but this time without trying to screw them up. So I'm going to jump into fast forward with the video and we'll carry on. This is my first docking attempt. Well, we'll come a little bit later, but we did the rendezvous in the other videos. Basically, this is I am chasing. I'm letting the other craft chase. Ditch the upper stage. Basically, this thing's a lot more manoeuvrable without it. And frequent small burns. We'll get near where we're going to. Did a little bit of a plane change, and it's really now about just get the approach as close as you can. When you get close, you point retrograde to the target object, burn and kill all your velocity, turn and face at it, which is the pink one there, and burn towards it a little bit more, and keep an eye on this intercept until you get something that is vaguely sensible, which is what we're heading towards here. So we're going to close in nicely, and it's just basically tweaking this until you think you're going to get close enough. You want to wait until you're reasonably close, probably anything under about 5 or 6 kilometers. Anything more than that, don't. If you can adjust it to be below 1, you're well away, and that's when you start switching over to this sort of mode here. This is where I was floundering around trying to find the correct keyboard shortcut. I think it's F4 turns those little labels on. Not sure why they're not on by default, but anyway, there we go. So that shows how close this other craft is. And what we're now going to do is try and get reasonably close. The Kerbal we're rescuing is going to come over via his little space jetpack. So, well, rocket pack, I suppose. It's not really jets, is it? So we're going to get fairly close. We're going to kill our relative velocity at 7.8 meters per second currently. The cheaty way is when the target is basically between you and Kerbin. That's about as close as you're going to get usually. So that's kill all your velocity, then you can head in. Orbital mechanics are weird at a distance, but when you start to get close, yeah, it becomes a little bit more predictable. So as we close up here, you can go in there, see just a small burn here just to kill the target velocity again. And we should spin around. Yes. For some reason the lights, while they say they're on, aren't necessarily on all the time. We turn around and point at our other spacecraft, which starts to light up, so we can start seeing what we're doing. Lights are well worth it if you have the part count. Lower performance machines, to be honest, still put lights on. It really helps with what you're doing. So here we are on approach. Yeah, so what we're just using the time warp controls a little bit to speed this thing up. Again, get nice and close, then we'll little bit of an engine burn just to kill this. Nice and near. There we go. And I think now we spin around. I'm trying to remember what happened here, because normally I comment on these things as we're going. And look at that. It's the first time we can see it. It's one of the little weird Soyuz style pods. This is where I was again floundering around trying to find a keyboard shortcut. I'm trying to find the way of changing craft. I thought it was a slash key. It's not. It's the 2 square bracket keys. So in a moment we will be jumping back to mission control, going via the space center. So the tracking station, so that I can actually select the other craft and tell the guy in it, get out, because he needs to come out and come over via EVA. So he's going to have to fly. Now this is something that, again, when I started doing this on console, just about every single time I got a Kerbal out of the capsule and he let go, he died. Mistakes were made, many of them. Eventually I worked out how to get the controls to work. It's, yeah, a little bit finicky. So here we're going in, just closing in using the reaction jets, basically because I've got them. You want to keep the distance between the 2 craft fairly minimal. I mean, you can go a fair way with a rocket pack, but it's just easier not to. And when you get there, something I don't really do in this one, but I will be doing in the second flight, orient your thing so that the door points towards the the incoming Kerbal, it makes life much, much simpler. So here we go, and again this is a little bit more floundering around. Yeah, see what we get to. So yes, here we are in the little pod. Click the EVA button and he gets out. It's wonderful. These little pods obviously will jettison this thing later from the tracking station and say, don't care about that. You can try and collect them, you can try and deorbit them, you can sometimes salvage a little bit of cash from it. But anyway, here we are with the jetpack. Now the key, small adjustments. I've still not quite worked out how to say I want that other craft to be the target. In which case you'd get the little thing on the nav ball at the bottom telling you your relative speed, and you'd have the thing on screen telling you the distance. This is another reason for keeping things as close as possible. But here we go, so we're just drifting down a little bit because the hatch is on the underneath. Something else, if you keep stability on, your Kerbal will always face forwards relative to your camera view. So if you rotate your camera view and then press any of the engine buttons, the Kerbal will rotate to look dead ahead. I could have turned his lights on here. There's a little light on the helmet, but I didn't, as we just come in nice and slow. You try and do this quickly, this is where you lose Kerbals. You'll end up flinging yourself off into the distance. They've only got limited fuel, and then you're thinking, gotta go and catch him. In this situation here, if he did actually float off, I would go and get him with the spacecraft, because he needs a little bit of fuel to get on board. So there he is, and that is a rescued Kerbal. Now what I should have done at this point is put this thing in the correct orientation to send something up to dock to it. Indeed, that was what I was planning on doing. Yeah, I forgot. So what I'm now currently doing is playing around with the various keyboard controls I'd found to see what happens. So yeah, you can put some forces overlays and things on. See, I didn't even know you could do any of that. I do now. Don't know what it does, but I'll have a look at some point. Yep, displays on and off. And what we're going to do now is return to the space center. So I will catch you on the ground. Yeah, so there we have the first successful flight of the Gemstone system, which I was it's a way of getting two Kerbals into orbit. So what we got here is we now have a new scientist who we can use. You can recruit Kerbals from here. As I say, the various candidates you can pick on the side, rated by courage and stupidity. I think it just changes the graphics slightly, to be honest. I don't think it does much else. Quick little look on here. Yeah, there's these sort of surface outpost things. We're not doing any of these. You can decline them, which starts generating more missions. The way I've set this up, there is a finance penalty and a reputation penalty for declining them, so if I just ignore them long enough, they'll go away. That polar satellite, what I was originally thinking was, well, I could send up a satellite, dock to it, and then it can go off on its sweet way and do another contract. Because that's a polar orbit one, that's going to require a lot of fuel. Much, much easier, just launch a polar orbit satellite later. So instead, what I'm going to do is load up a second instance of the this rocket here, the Gemstone. We are going to go for the other Kerbal who needs rescuing. We're basically going to repeat the mission, so I'm going to do that in fast forward, and we'll come back when I've got him. Yeah, so here we are, just going in, checking the same ship, making sure we've got an empty seat. Let Val go on this one. Come to it when I start doing the docking, but basically Jeb has got some slightly better abilities to control the ship at the moment because he's slightly more experienced. We need to do more work with Minmus, and Val will be on the next mission to Minmus, so she will level up as well. Indeed, I may here modify the craft I use so I can take one or two of the other crew along for the ride, because the next one I believe is science from around Minmus. We haven't yet had the world's first thing to say go and orbit it. Hopefully we'll have that by the time we get there, because I think the next world's first after we do this docking here, if memory serves, is go do the same thing basically in orbit of the Mun. Frustratingly, it's dock and crew transfer, so I can't just do that. We'd go and drop a satellite and go and dock to it. But there we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Took slightly longer to get to the capsule on this one. The orbits weren't perfect. You can, if you play around when you launch with these equatorial ones, if they're just coming up over the horizon as you launch, you get into an orbit that's reasonably close, and then you can save a lot of this messing around. I've got the performance, and I couldn't be bothered, so there we go. Laziness for the win. This one also in daylight, which makes a nice change. So again, in we come, use the reaction engines to get nice and close. Different sort of capsule, and then as usual, back to the space station. I do figure that one out. It is the square bracket keys. It took me a while to work it out. So here we go. He's going to get out, and again, he's going to jetpack over. He's going to get in, and we're going to rescue him. And then the two of them are going to have they're going to have a little rest. So let's see how that went. Now with the rescued Kerbals safely on board in the tender care of Val, we'll leave them up there. Next job is to go and dock with them. So this is going to be basically grab another craft and up we go. To get to the rendezvous point, this is pretty much a duplicate of the previous two flights. The craft has by now proven itself. It's reasonably stable in atmosphere. Fins would probably help, don't really need the weight, so away we go. Get up into the upper atmosphere, ditch the fairings before we do the orbital circularization burn, and then off we go. And again, this is going to consist of, right, well, there's the target, ditch the lower stage because that makes life simpler, go get near it, and do the final sort of alignment burns, pretty much exactly as we did on coming up with the other two. The difference is now we're heading for an active spacecraft, not a unpowered hulk. This does actually mean if we got there, we have the choice of which craft becomes the active one and which is the passive. Gemstone 3 here is going to be the active craft. It's got Jeb on board because he can hold alignments reasonably well. The other one is active, sort of powered up with its stability on, basically pointing straight up. So what we're going to do with this is point straight down. We're going to try and get nice and close, so we'll be switching over to the visual mode shortly. And then most of the rest of the approach is going to be done visually, which is scary, but if you can see the thing you're heading for, it's not too hard. So you see there we have the little target dot. Go get nice and close. And again, you see a lot of time in the map view. It's weird, the amount of time in the game you actually spend in the map view. You can do more or less than the entire mission from here. You can, once you're off the powered flight. I think the thing you can't do from here is stage. So launching is something you want to do, and you can't activate landing gear and a few other bits and pieces from here. But most of your manoeuvring burns and stuff you will do from here. So you see, here we are, burning in, getting nice and close. And again, the closest point of approach goes a little bit further around in orbit. You want to keep it ahead of you slightly, but there's our target craft. So we're now going to head towards that. Now we're at this sort of distance, you don't want to be going too quickly. You just need to have pretty quick reflexes and a craft that can turn around and hit the brakes fairly fast. I mean, sort of 10, 11, 12 meters per second. Reasonably quick approach. Lights are on, which is the other test. And you see we're getting a little bit near, so turn around, hit the brake. So this is where the Kerbals being able to do the prograde and retrograde on their own is brilliant, because you can do one mouse click. They will put the craft into the correct orientation, and once it's in the correct orientation, you will just close in. So yeah, as we just continue to get a little bit nearer, and then we're going to put the thing into the docking attitude. See, at the moment I'm using the main engines, so I want to switch over. I want to control from that docking port. Eventually you get the ability to select from the other. I think you have to actually be in docking mode to do it, which I wasn't at this point. So docking mode changes how some of the controls work. So I prefer to do most of the initial closing using the main engines rather than the reaction control, even though I've loaded this thing up with plenty of reaction monopropellant. So now what we're going to do is not aim at the craft. The target marker is currently aiming at the ship, at its centre of mass. So what I want to do is aim a bit above it, because I want to get in there. I want to be above the target vessel, so I'm above its the docking port I want to aim for. I can then point at that docking port and close in, whereas otherwise I'm going to end up basically alongside the thing, and I've got a lot more manoeuvring to do. So again, I'll do this using the main engines because it's fairly easy. If you're using a much larger craft that doesn't rotate as quickly, this is where you use the reaction engines basically from this point and do it all using those. There are mods that will show you your alignment to the target docking port. We go into here, see docking mode. It's sort of, in theory, they see that should be showing your relative motion and your relative position. For some reason, it didn't seem to. But had to switch around a little bit just to try and get it back in the normal mode, so I could use the engines for braking. And then I believe we get a little bit nearer, and then it's going to be switched back to. There we go. See, by clicking that the anti-node thing, I've basically got Jeb to put us in that orientation. Now I know I left Val pointing the opposite direction, so I now know these craft are basically 180 degrees apart, near as damn it, which is good enough. So we're now going to play around with the reaction control systems. I'm going to roll the craft a few times, basically to get left and right working the way I want them on the keyboard. Usually the control point's at the front, so sometimes you'll either have left or right or up and down inverted. It's not too hard to work with. I tend to find having left and right being what it is on the screen works nicely. And if you're looking at the ship from the back, it's fairly simple, but this is why I'm rotating at this point. So what we're going to do now is close in using these reaction jets. And it's not quite comedy of errors, but let's just say it's been a few years since I've done this. But docking, rendezvous aren't that hard to get. It's a knack. Docking, little bit more of a skill that you practice. It's not hard, but it is something that does take. It takes a few attempts. I suspect it's why some of these world first goals involve rendezvous and dockings. It's to sort of encourage you to actually do it. Once you can dock things in orbit, you can refuel them in orbit. So here we are. So we set the target docking port. What that does is it puts the target bit on that, so I've now got the distance I'm away from it. But once you can dock in orbit, you can refuel in orbit, which means you can now make much larger craft that difficult to launch. You can launch them on low fuel to get them into orbit, and you can then refuel them. A little bit like SpaceX are going to be doing with their Starship thing. Get it into orbit, refuel it, and then you can go anywhere with it. So that's a useful one. There are space station missions that come up. Yeah, to be honest, there's not a vast amount of point in making a space station. However, when you start going places like Duna, you don't really want to fly to Duna in something that can land on Duna's surface, take off, and come all the way back again. What you want to do is fly there, in a ship that can get there and get back quite efficiently, and then have a much, much smaller lander, so you don't have to take all of your return fuel down to the surface and then come back up. Especially if you try Eve. I've landed on Eve. I've never successfully taken off from there. That'll be something for later on, possibly. You most certainly are not landing something capable of taking off from Eve and getting home with all its fuel. You're lucky to get to Eve orbit from the surface. Its gravity is horrible, and so is its atmosphere. So yeah, you need to be able to dock. Even if it's, I will get a lander that I will put into orbit, and I will then send a little tug to go and grab it, which are things I've done before. Sometimes having just a little on-orbit tug craft is quite useful. Yeah, space stations aren't that useful, but they give you somewhere to go. Orbital fuel depot, something around Mun, can work quite nicely. What you do is you fly to it, and you try and dock there, and you offload the excess fuel in your boost stage that you know you're not going to need for landing. Then you end up with a lot of fuel eventually in Mun orbit. Just dumping the excess. It's like if you get back into Mun orbit and you think, well, I've got 800 meters per second worth of fuel. I know I'm only going to need, say, 400 to get home. Yeah, maybe I'll leave 300 here. So here we go. Now, yeah, final approach here. Sometimes it's worth going to the sides. You can get to the point where I know in the X plane I am exactly where I need to be, so I'm going to put the camera to focus me on the Y plane, and I'm going to close in on that. Learning to fly on instruments works. As you can see here, I'm making a bit of a pig's breakfast of this. When you get close, the docking ports have got magnets in them, and they will grab each other. And then your reaction jets go bananas as they try and stabilise you. This here is me. That's not that effect. This is me trying to stabilise the thing. As you see, we end up drifting past, and they get a little bit too close. Back off and do it again. I'm using up reaction fuel here, but I started out with 40 units. I'm not using very much of it doing this. The little Mark 1 pod has got some RCS fuel on board. Once you know what you're doing, you don't need the extra tanks with a little ship like this. A small 400 unit fuel tank strapped behind it, and a Terrier and a couple of RCS jets, and away you go. You can get away with just 4 RCS jets if you position them around the centre of mass. I found if you put a set near the front and a set near the back, they will sort themselves out. And there we go. Docked. Ta-da! I'm quite satisfied with that, as the thing looks quite nice. So yes, we'll take that. Now that has completed the mission to dock. So we've done that one. We've rescued one Kerbal. We've actually rescued the second, but we've not taken him home yet. So literally all we have to do now is undock. So yeah, click the appropriate button, kadink, and you end up in control of one or other of the craft. So here we got Val and the rescued Kerbal. So what we're going to do is take them home, and we'll do this all in fast forward because you don't need to watch this all in real time. And obviously getting home is relatively straightforward. It's just point yourself retrograde on the orbit, and away you go. Slight problem here. I ran out of battery power, so the thing was tumbling. I will admit I used a slight cheat. If you go into time warp, it stops the tumble, so I just got myself pointing in roughly the right direction. Time warp briefly, dropped out. When it goes in the atmosphere, it is stable, blunt end first. So down we go. And the follow-up from that is just a quick little look around at the Space Centre. Check what we've got here, and do the clear up of the launch pad. And then it's back up into space. Go and get Gemstone 3 with Jeb and our intrepid engineer, who was absolutely terrified on launch, which is... I love the expression on the Kerbals' faces. So we will go and grab that, and again this is a return, so again I will speed this up. So yes, here we are doing the same thing again. This time I remember to put the thing into a recharge the batteries orientation before we do. Go around, dump the support stage, and back down, whee, through the atmosphere, parachute, yada yada yada, into the highlands, managing to miss a mountain, which is quite nice. And yeah, and that is basically that. That's 3 flights of the Gemstone rocket, which I'm quite happy with. That worked. Don't quite have the funds to unlock more science. We do have a couple more Kerbals, so engineers and scientists are useful. Scientists can be like left places, which is quite nice. So we've got a couple more contracts to do. Yeah, so yeah, go dock and transfer around the Mun. Yeah, we'll have that one. That's fairly straightforward. Science around Minmus as well. We're going back to Minmus anyway, so we may as well get paid for doing it. So yeah, we still don't have the go and orbit Minmus mission, so that might be another flyby. It could be a bit cheaty. Well, I'll say a bit cheaty, not cheaty. I can do a little probe and say, go on a Minmus flyby mission. Give it batteries, give it an antenna, and just go and fling it off into space. I don't want to orbit Minmus until somebody's going to pay me to do it. We could just take this. I mean, I could take this rescue craft out there. I could take Val out there with that, which would level her up a bit. So yeah, so we've got a couple more missions. We could unlock the advanced aerodynamics stuff. Yeah, I don't need it. I'm not really planning on building more aircraft just yet. Space planes are not really something I've ever had much luck with. We don't have the science to unlock the next nodes. We do have the money to unlock the tech center, so we can do it, which does give us ability to do things like surface sample. So we'll certainly be doing that before we go to Mun again. Yes, that's that. So slightly unusual episode, like I say, because I managed to lose all the audio footage, but never mind. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this, shares, comments, and yada yada would be appreciated. Otherwise, I will catch you all in the next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye.